Muchachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Fun time had by all. I'm Petey Rave, and here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my friends, my triumvirate. We've got David Majors, aka DJM.
Buenos tacos, muchachos. After last week's episode with Lenny Kravitz, I think it's my turn to be the heel again.
Mm-hmm. And next to him is going to be Drew Snyder.
Found out Sean Martin passed over the weekend, and that sucks.
Yep.
Not to date the episode, but I just did.
Yeah. We're here to talk about an album. We're here to talk about some music, and I just decided because they're on the verge of coming back with the tour, and maybe I don't know if there's going to be new music, but they're going to be
Is this going to be another one of those episodes where we have to turn the comments off, Edie?
I don't know if that. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Probably not. We're fine. We're fine.
I mean, Petey. I mean, like I said at the top, like are we going to have to turn off the comments? Am I going to have to go private for a little bit?
Well, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. We're talking about a group that is coming back, reunited for their 15th anniversary. It's going to have an upcoming tour, a couple sold out concerts in Seoul, and we're still waiting on word on the world tour at this point. We're talking about a group, this album, which is at this point 10 years old. We're talking about 2NE1's Crush. I will say I did preface this. It's fascinating because this album is 10 years old. It is essentially only their second studio album and was their final one. And it's why I joked last week that they're celebrating a 15th anniversary of their 5-year career, because this was essentially their last album, and they got
Bunch
kind of
grizzled veterans they are.
Yeah. This 5 years after the debut, they debuted in 2009, and they had this album 5 years later, and were put into for the K-pop fans, we'll put it into the infamous YG dungeon, essentially. But that's beside the point. We're going to talk about this fun K-pop album.
No, it's not, because I'm actually going to ask about the lore of this group. So it's not beside the point. I want to know the lore.
Yes. So we're going to get into that. I do have some tidbits and some emotional thoughts on this. But we're going to talk about some K-pop. I just decided we want to talk about some K-pop. We're going to talk about 2NE1, second gen queens that they are. And we're going to be talking about their second studio album, Crush, which is right here. I have it right here in my possession. Let's talk about, I'll talk about it music a bit. Let's talk about what y'all were, expectations, I guess. David, what was your mindset coming into this album? What were you expecting coming into this album?
Beyond the standard machine factory like perfection of pop music production that you usually get from a release like this, I didn't know what to expect exactly, because you can say K-pop, but what I understand is that there are certain degrees of nuance, no matter how much I make fun of the tropes. So, Petey, I want to ask you, if you were making a tier list, where would 2NE1 rank in terms of significance?
Of that era, they would be one of the, if we're talking about tier lists, the traditional sense, they would be S tier.
Okay.
They're...
All right, that actually does shape some of my thoughts on the album. Okay. Secondly, I would like to know a little bit about this group's lore, because 5-year gaps between albums, and going off into the shadow realm and then coming back years later. That feels like there's a story there.
I remember I read something about a drug thing, and I was going to ask.
Yeah. So there's a lot to crash course into, but I will say 2NE1 debuted 2009. If you let me kind of look through just to get the exact dates, I'm going to put it up on Wikipedia, but they debuted in 2009, a little bit before obviously my time in K-pop, which mostly came from because of Kaz and our Google Hangouts in 2012, 2011, 2012, and 2013. But they debuted, had like a mini album, was like their debut single mini album, Fire, which is a dope ass song. And eventually, had Fire, had a couple of like I Don't Care, a couple of the tracks. They had their debut full length album 2NE1, actually in words TOANIONE ANYONE, in 2010. Had classic singles from that. And then between that and this album was a collection of digital singles, promised albums, but then just continued digital singles, a second mini album, but a second mini album, which I also have over there, and a few digital singles before we finally got word of a comeback album. And then this album, Crush, in 2014. So it was like a big 4-year gap, this aside from like these scattered singles. And after this, and we'll get into the album, but I would say after this, as far as like why they kind of went into the Shadow Realm, they just kind of became. It was after this. It's almost like became the Toy Story meme of I don't want to play with you anymore, as far as YG was concerned, because it's almost there's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons that I think we've especially covered a lot of like why Kaz and I had this like big turnaround from we were YG fans from the beginning as a company because just we liked their output to like, oh my God, we hate this company. And if you were to watch or listen to our podcast, Hallyu through its like arc, we had a whole emotional arc with YG. 2014, they debuted two boy groups in that year, Winner and Icon. It was like a whole survival show where there was two units competing to be the group that debuted. And then they debuted both anyways because the show really only mattered for tribalizing the fandoms of either group so that afterwards they would be.
It's almost as if it's by design.
Of course. I mean, we've all discussed this on Hallyu. We've discussed. We had a whole podcast where we discussed it. We went over how all of this. We even used words. I even used words like kayfabe and work and things like that. I put it in all those terms. All the survival shows are like that. But they debuted Winner and Icon, which both groups that Kaz and I will say that we both enjoyed. I got to see them. I got to see Icon at South by Southwest. They were fantastically fun. But they became. Other than like Big Bang, which were self-sufficient at that point, they were veterans, so they were self-sufficient, mostly just making their own music. The favored plaything, and then 2 years later, in 2016, Blackpink, and Blackpink became Blackpink and is now Blackpink. And then
I have several questions.
For those that are aware, like just they are. Blackpink are just they are
inescapable.
And they are the second. They are the other group of the two groups that people know of as far as K-pop groups. They're BTS and Blackpink, and they became favorable, and things got 2NE1 kind of got put to the wayside. A couple of scandals, including Bomb having a drug scandal, and it was mostly just due to her accidentally or not trying to bring over some Adderall for her ADHD. She's she has struggled with a lot of mental health issues that probably, if you've seen her over the years, also has manifested in kind of like a very obvious and evident overuse of plastic surgery. That has been like the hallmark of like when you see her. Um, and and 2NE1 kind of like were always the lesser, well, like they were treated like shit at YG. Like one of the things
Yeah.
yeah. And one of the things the YG, YG of YG, young PD, young Hansuk, one of the things that he said out loud with his own mouth in an interview about Blackpink is that Blackpink were like 2NE1 except they're pretty. So he said that out loud.
Huh.
So if you imagine what he probably says to, they've said in joking manner in multiple interviews that he would call them ugly over and over again.
Joking manners.
Exactly. The interview is like, oh, hey, he just calls us ugly. It was like, yeah. And then like, so they've been through a lot, and they were then, again, they became the not favored plaything. And then they kicked out Minzy, then used her mental health struggles but to throw her under the bus for the reason that they couldn't have 2NE1 come back anymore. It's like, well, we want to come back, but Minzy. And then they did a cursory goodbye song, and they shooed them out after their contracts were over. They basically waited out their contracts and gave them a perfunctory goodbye song, and then booted them out the door.
All right.
That's essentially the lore.
All right.
There's a
Thank
lot
you,
more
Petey.
things in there, and there's a lot of stories and a lot of like history there. But yeah, essentially, as best as I could recall it. But yeah, back to the matter at hand. Drew, what was your mindset and your expectations coming into listening to this album?
Well, I expected a like super polished, super well produced pop record. Um, I will say maybe a little bit more straight pop than I got, which we'll get into. But and I expected to hear words that I did not understand.
Which you did get.
Yeah, but I also got words I did understand, which was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking about this album musically. It is very much in line as we talk about YG Entertainment. The central identity of them as a company, as a monolith, as a company in their musical output has always been
Cyberpunk dystopia.
that, but if you look at the go see the music video for Come Back Home, you'll see the cyberpunk dystopia. It literally is the aesthetic for that music video. YG Entertainment has, because of YG himself, young Hansuk, young PD, he came from a group called Sateji and the Boys, led by Sateji. He was one of the two boys of that group. Not the boys that we know, which are the true boys, which are Dalton Castle's boys, but that's a whole other, those are the real boys. But they called themselves Sateji and the Boys, where that was the group that really started K-pop on its eventual path by releasing releasing a third-rate imitation of a Cypress Hill song and blowing the minds of the Korean youth. And part of that is that they introduced hip hop to Korea, and that's falls into the identity of YG. There is a lot of among all of the sounds and milieus, there's going to be at its core a lot of hip hop influence. This album is very much like it's ultimately at its core going to create K-pop, pop polished K-pop, but with the source material being influences from like hip hop, R&B, electro, dance pop, and a little bit of reggae here and there, and a bunch of all that stuff. It's very well produced, very well made. I think Teddy was still, Teddy Park was still,
Not
had
Teddy
idea.
Riley for the folks at home.
No, not Teddy Riley. Teddy Park
Teddy
hadn't run out
Ruxpin?
of ideas yet. Not for a few years after this. But he was still on his game, and it's solidly produced, solidly constructed. You're gonna get dancey, engaging pop like arena bangers. You're gonna get some like braggadocious like hip hop influence tracks, personality centered tracks, because that's kind of like where 21 shined. You're gonna get a couple of like fun little like ballads, so a couple like like little emotional ballads and emotional like chill songs and R&B tracks. You get just an outright banger of a CL solo track, which we'll get to in the next segment. And that's essentially it. You kind of get this like mix of this very well polished, very well produced set of influences and source materials that make a kind of really fun, iconic K-pop album. It is highly produced. It is highly constructed, but CL does have her hand in a lot of this, and as a creator, and she does allow her personality and choice of sound to shine through, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, it is a very polished and but I think very fun record. But yeah, David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as maybe not a modern K-pop album in the 2024 sense.
No.
But I can also, given what Petey has told me, I can see that this album was likely very influential. Because a lot of the things I have heard, I can hear sort of flowing from this album. All of the things that Petey mentioned, I hear on this album. It's mostly all the way coherent. Some of the songs are a little jumpy from here to there, but overall the package is mostly cohesive. I don't want to get too repetitive on Petey's points, but the engineering is solid. The vocals are solid. CL, the rapper, I will talk about her a little bit later. And I see why this album was likely extremely influential to the genre going forward.
Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
So one, like I said earlier, I understand some of the words, which doesn't always happen on these, which automatically was kind of cool. But there was a sound on this that I did not realize this was an album that came out in 2014. But it's an album that when I heard it, there's a certain sound that was in pop music between like I'd say 2006, 2007, right around when I graduated, to like 2015. where there was a lot of melodies, but also hip hop drums were on fucking everything, like everything, like and eventually got to like specifically 808s, but like it was just hip hop drums. It was just hard hitting hip hop drums on everything. And that had this. There were club bangers, which was fun. Like at times I was like, you could have told me with some of these songs they went on tour with like Kesha or Gaga or some shit, and I would have 100% believed you. The composition was actually really, really good. Also, another thing you don't get a lot, and again, it's one of those things, I swear I can hear it. When somebody is writing and making music they enjoy writing and making, that can come through. And you look at who wrote and arranged a lot of this music. It's people within that are playing it. Wild concept, I know. But like that's a lot of it. And some you don't always get that in pop music. And it's really, really cool because you can kind of hear them having fun and like playing with things. But I want to now know how great the music is because it was really impressive and it was really fun. The other part that was impressive to me was that meshing of languages. Like, because everything just flowed really flawlessly, even as they were changing the language they were singing / rapping in, and it never felt forced or like there was any hitch, and it just fit together really well, which I can barely speak English. Like, I couldn't imagine trying to piece together lyrics of a song with 2 languages in my head. That's impressive in and of itself, let alone the musical talent.
Yeah. CL is we get into like the songs and the songwriter. CL because she kind of like spent a lot of her time growing up going in like different countries. I think like since the time of Japan and like somewhere else. She did spend a lot of time being able to like learn English, so she's fluent in English, and so is Bomb, Pak Bomb. And I think the other two as well are also fairly competent in English. Dara is essentially an honorary Filipina because she spent a lot of her early career before 21 as a Philippine in the Philippines as a celebrity before then going to 21 and having a whole other second career and then now. So
And which one was that again?
Dara Sandara Park. She didn't have a lot of lines on on this song. She's not there for her vocal power, but she's a great personality. And but they have that English prowess. But yeah, we're talking about tracks as key tracks. I mean, I gotta do the thing, which is talk about the opening track, which is also the title track in the way we can say title track, and title track in the way well, not title track in the way normally it says, which is promotional single in K-pop, but the title track, which is Crush, which I think just does a really fun job of opening the album. It shows that like fun, personality driven sound of 21. It's very like it's very hip hop influence. It's like, and it has that fun hook, that fun like they love me because I'm hot, they love me because I'm cold, they love me because I'm real, they love me because I kill. And it's just like this, like, you know, like, yeah, it just is that confidence and that fun of that, and it all kind of comes together, and it's, you know, it's super danceable and super catchy, and has just the great that great end that is just made for chanting along during live performances. It was really fun, like great opening. Come Back Home is like the promotional single off of the album. It is named after Sateji and the Boys song, their like big iconic song. And it has a really nice like sound that mixes like electro with a little bit of like a reggae mix, or almost like, I think one of the things that I think it was Jeff Benjamin. I was looking in the Wikipedia for like the information that said that it was like a reggae trap blend. I was like a couple of the other people that says like a reggae trap kind of like a blend, which is really really cool, interesting way to put it. And it works really well. Even like the trappy breakdown, which if you ever, I don't know how many people actually listened to Harajuku way back in the day when this album came out. We talked about this album alongside the other album that was released along the same time. Which, fun fact, I forgot to bring up. There's a fun fact on there that it was originally going to be released on the 24th. But it was delayed to the 27th, and on the Wikipedia it repeats the claim that it was to coincide with CL's birthday. Us K-pop fans know that was a lie. It was to avoid being released at the same time as the other major group, Girl Generation, this album. This was releasing at that same day, so they just delayed it by 3 days so that they didn't have to compete on the immediate hot charts with them.
Why is this a competition?
It's all a competition. I don't know. But yeah, the Come Back Home, I think just a worthy single and worthy fun. Even like I said, the review at the time, I didn't love it. The breakdowns, I felt that it kind of like broke up the momentum, but they've kind of won me over the years, many years later. And like, I think they still fit well, and they are kind of like a nice change of pace and vary things really well. Gotta Be You is a really nice, well performed kind of like and I'm not gonna go through every track. They just kind of like, these three kind of came in order. Gotta Be You, 2NE1's. I think this one showcases the vocals really well, and is just a really fun follow up to that song, as well as If I Were You. I think actually If I Were You was what I was thinking of. If I Were You, I think that one it showcases like the vocal strength and the vocal performances. If I Were You, Sarambo Asumyon He, and this one is also composed, partly composed and written by CL herself, and it showcases like a nice vocal power and vocal performance, and it's really nice like little ballad there, and it's just this really nice strong vocal performance. And I would say NTBD or Menbung or Mental Breakdown, the CL solo. This is just fun banger of a ridiculous like ho anthem. It's just like, it is just a fun banger anthem. It is just of the fun like instrumental hook of it. It is CL's rapping is just fun to listen to. It's fun to kind of like, it's super catchy and engaging, and like just has a great energy. And it is just a fun hip hop tinged club banger in a lot of really great ways. It's also the one that had the controversy because they originally had sampled allegedly a child reading the Quran, which caused a lot of problems.
Really? Okay.
And they had to release a version without it.
Is that not a thing in Korea?
I guess they didn't. There's a lot of issues with Korean entertainment, and especially 2014.
No.
Yes, and understanding global cultural and like things. and that maybe they didn't understand how that was not
East Asian country being isolationist and clueless? The hell you say? No.
I think things have gotten better, but yeah, this like 2014, it was still not great. But they released it. I wonder if it's still on the version that I have. I'd have to pop it in and listen to it because I have like the original CD.
I remember reading that. I was like, oh, hey, they had the Zelda problem.
Yeah.
That's how it always happens in my head, is the only thing I can think of as Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. And then I would just give a shout out specifically Scream, and in conjunction with like the last track being like just an unplugged version of their promotional single, in that sense that it's one of two songs that this and Come Back Home are two. I love Scream. It's a fun song, but it's kind of a filler track in the sense that it's just a re-release of a 3-year-old Japanese single that they released. It's like, so that if you take that song out and the last song, you really realize that this is a 8 new song full length album. Which again, back to YG and how, you know, how they care about, you know, putting effort into releasing music. But I love Scream. It's a fun song. It had always been a fun song. It's fun that they've released a Korean version finally. That's cool. But yeah, David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I made it all the way to track number 4, which is the CL solo track. It was very good. It was very good. I honestly have to say the first 3 tracks of the album really came off as maybe a bit disjointed. And the reason I say that is because I have no problem with when groups or artists move between genres. Of course, that's not a problem. But when I was listening to Crush, Come Back Home, and Gotta Be You, the first 3 tracks, it just didn't feel like none of them flowed together. And it just felt like we were doing an R&B ballad, then we were doing a pop banger, and then we were doing a hip-hop verse. And it just, the arrangements for the first half of this album really were not working for me. But the CL solo song really caught my attention. Happy as well. A solid example of the old city pop trope of upbeat music and incredibly sad lyrics. And I'm here for that. And with Scream, we kind of go back to K-pop 101, but I imagine despite this song not having as many Spotify listeners as the others, I dug that one. I dug Happy and Scream.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, the title track, the opening track, the first track, the crash cymbal sound alone on that, like, instantly took me back to those club banger tracks that I was talking about before. Like that era in music, like something about that cymbal tone, especially. I don't know what sample that is. I don't know what like plugin that is. I don't know, but it seemed like everybody used it and automatically I was like, yep, nope. Plus the synths on that were awesome, really fun. Good to You, a piano ballad with hip hop drums. Again, it's knowing now, like when I sat down to research, like just double check info and background before we came on. I was like, oh, this is 2014. I thought this came out like last year. Like this totally makes sense now. Baby, I Miss You There is a dance studio teaching 13-year-old girls a dance routine to this right now somewhere. I can almost guarantee it. Oh my God. And then ending with the stripped down acoustic Come Back Home version, and just letting the like sort of vocal heavy performance sort of shine, I think was a brilliant choice to end the album. Because you had, like I said, a lot more of the heavier like drum beats, dance beats, stuff like that come through. So to have that be the end, I think was really, really smart.
Yeah. Let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
Like I said at the beginning, I respect this album's significance for the time. And I respect all of the performers in this world because of the work that they put themselves through, and the life that they put themselves through is something to be respected. CL really impressed me. And I have not said that about many rappers in K-pop. She impressed me. I really enjoyed her. I saw that she has some solo work. I might check that out once we're all done. The album had some hooks that were more memorable than others, but I think that this felt very much like a K-pop 101 album. But given that it was at a specific time, I can see how influential this was. Like, I can see this album, to make a comparison for myself, being almost something like Images and Words in 1992. Very influential, very popular, but a bit dated for its time, as opposed to sounding very modern now. But overall, it wasn't that bad.
Drew, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
Well, I had a lot of fun with it. I think it was a really cool album. It was something where I always was happy to put it on. It was something that was a really, really easy listen. And it was nostalgic for me in a way. Um, it's it's a sound and a type of music that I heard a lot when I was of a certain age, and I like was too focused on either the music I was making or being a punk asshole in high school or whatever, that like I didn't really give it as much like focus. So going back now with something that wouldn't have been, this band wouldn't have been on my radar, but the sounds and genres they play in with would have been, and like diving in, it's like, yeah, I need to go back and like, I said it during the art pop thing, but like, yeah, I need to give some of those albums more of the credit that they're due, I think. And it goes to show like the ability that these girls have, I think goes to show that it's like, oh yeah, no, this is great. It's fun. If they make new music, I'm interested. Like I would listen to them make new music in the year of our Lord 2024. 10 years after this, but for what it was, I think it was a lot of fun.
They're on that Metallica pace.
Yes.
On the Weird Al pace.
Yeah, kind of. It would be, yeah. This album was a really fun album. It really was worth the wait. As much as aggravating as it was for fans at the time to kind of wait, even after like the digital singles started drying up, her waiting for an album after all those singles. It's this album throws me back into that excitement, that nostalgia, that frustration, that anger. But it is a fun, iconic album. that still delights me to this day. Um, I, I it brings me back obviously to I wish they had gotten a chance to continue just making something, even if they weren't like the focus. I mean, let CL take over like they'd let basically G Dragon take over Big Bang, essentially G Dragon and Top and them. um and let CL kind of like, if your focus of your main like creative force is going to be focused on Winner and
Last minute
Icon.
haiku change.
Yeah. um Winner and Icon, and then eventually Blackpink. Let them, let them kind of like decide their own destiny, and see what they can do on their own. And you did that for Big Bang.
So what you're saying is, if given the opportunity, 21 could have been like the inescapable Blackpink. They would have been on that level.
They could have, or they could have at least been. They could have at least been like Big Bang. Like I keep comparing it to Big Bang, but Big Bang isn't of like those of us remember them. They may have been. I don't know about where. I think Blackpink would have still had the timing and the momentum to be the one to be the inescapable one, but they could have kept making good music and fun music for us.
But they would have stayed in the S tier.
Yeah, I would say that they would have, and then like probably like move at this point, been doing other things, and like, but they would have at least been able to make more things, make more music, make more iconic albums. Fucking, we don't know. We don't know what could have been. I would like what.
Sarah.
Like one of the things that the early, and they would have maybe some of that bitterness that was that unnecessary fandom bitterness from the Blackjacks toward Blackpink, as kind of being the replacement puppy for the dog that YG ran over.
That's the thing that I don't understand. You have two great slices of pizza. You're not going to throw one away just because you may like one more. You're going to eat both slices of pizza.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
I don't.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't understand.
There's a lot of conversation to be had about YG as a company and as a company and their approach to how much effort they want to put and resources they want to put to based off of whatever. The YG is a shit company, and I hate young PD. But that's beside the point. I just want to focus on this. Was a great album. This was a fun album, and I love 21, and I'm glad that I hope they.
And I like CL.
Yeah, I like CL. I love all the girls. I hope they come around, and I hope I get to see them if they come to the States and they come near me on tour. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out somehow. Yeah, that's all I could really put on 21. And it's good to revisit this album again. 10 years after our first release, and we talked about it on Harajuku. I'll try to link the episode in the show notes of Harajuku. I think it's an audio only. It was before we were really doing video. So it's just an audio only podcast, but it might be fun to kind of see what I was doing a long time ago, podcasting wise, and the equipment I had back then. It's not the same. I had stuff I had. I think I'm not gonna say it was the Rock Band mic still. I'm sure I upgraded to something else. Probably the Yeti.
I guess.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, now we move on to the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for, our haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form, the 575. let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haikumuro numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
PD, let me just say, I did genuinely appreciate the deep dive. I did genuinely appreciate it.
Glad.
CL, impressive. The rest, by the book K-pop. The machine will churn.
Drew, what is your haiku?
Dance-heavy music with a varied inspiration. I can get the groove.
And my haiku, Gen 2 K-pop queens unknowingly say goodbye. Fuck you, Young Hyun Suk.
Talk to him. Talk to him, Petey.
And those
Drop that pipe bomb on him, Petey. Do it.
Oh, we're
live on the internet.
I have a whole year, so many years worth of podcast in Harajuku of both I and Kaz shitting on YG. There's a whole, if you want to like go nuts, go check out on rebelly.net or all of our episodes on you can probably look and find the episodes where we specifically talk about YG, but like we had our journey. This is not the first time I've been like venting my frustration on that company and Young PD and including
and as long as we keep doing record breakers, it won't be the last.
It won't be the last. Maybe I wonder if one of the episodes I talked about how
who knows? Maybe I'll get Petey riled up on Fanny Pack GM mode. Who knows?
Well, we might have even talked about how Young Hyun Suk groomed his now wife to date him while she was still a member of one of the groups under his label, and admittedly purposely tanked the group's career so she wouldn't be too popular, and then confessed his love to her on a 2-hour phone call in which he says that she quote thought he was joking, and certainly wasn't that she was trying to like be nice and try to play it off like hopefully he'll think, hopefully ha ha ha, and he didn't pressure her. He didn't certainly use the power dynamic of being her boss to force her to date him, and only married her years later after secretly having her as his girlfriend. Didn't have her as a girlfriend, only married her many years later after she got pregnant.
If all of these K-pop conglomerates would just let people date who they want to date and just be fucking chill about it, be a lot less problems.
But yeah, those are our thoughts on 2NE1's Crush. You can find it on our Spotify and YouTube playlists. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence, and your due diligence on those playlists would be next week's record, and it's going to be provided by David. David, what have you got for us?
Well, this was a spur of the moment album choice, inspired by a conversation I had with the man himself behind this album over the weekend. Given that he is a quasi-independent musician, I offered a donation, and he replied back in an email issuing my thanks. And I replied calling him my music true north for now coming up on 18 years. This gentleman has been my true north because his music brain is very similar to mine. And I'm talking about Mr. Jem Godfrey. This was the album that he spawned from 2006, the beginning of the project Frost. And the album is called Million Town. Now, I'm going to be the one to do the deep dive.
Mm-hmm. Jem Godfrey and Million Town.
Oh, Frost and Million Town.
Okay. All right. That's going to be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us everywhere You find podcasts, Spotify still, Pocket Cast, a few other places. We're rebelly.net for all of our other stuff, our podcast. Rebelly TV on YouTube. If you're over there on YouTube, come over to find us on Rebelly TV on Twitch, where you can watch us live, including this podcast, watching it live. Through the Tomes, our TTRPG show, our GM mode streams, and whatever other fun activities we might get into as a collective. But yeah, check that out. All over the place. You can find us everywhere. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo to all of you.
Annyeong. Fighting.
Crying nut.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.